Hello and welcome back to Gooder's Front Room. Today we're heading back to 1954. Hitchcock's Rear Window is a classic thriller, that is undeniable, and it may actually be his best film. And yet it could be so much better, so much more interesting. It's all down to the ending, an ending that pulls its punch, that ducks the difficult but more interesting avenue. We'll talk about that ending in a bit, but first let's take a look at what makes the film so great. And if you enjoyed the discussion, please do like and subscribe. Telling the tale of a housebound photographer as he slowly becomes more obsessed with the lives of the neighbours he can see from his window, the film immediately lays out one of its key components. It is set entirely within the lead character's apartment. Our view of the denizens of the neighbourhood is the same as his, and we also share the same sense of claustrophobia. As an audience, we don't have any extra information, so we are left to make the same guesses as Jimmy Stewart's LB. Everything starts out harmless enough as LB watches the lives that play out during a summer heatwave. This opening section allowing us to get a feel for the cast of characters being observed across the backyard courtyard. The young lovers, the composer, the dog owner, the singleton. It's definitely worth mentioning at this point the amazing set design of the courtyard apartments. The detail on it is amazing. Every apartment is almost a character in and of itself. Particular attention was paid to the lighting system to ensure it could be used to portray realistic day and night times. Great care was also taken to give the courtyard a life with a natural soundscape. The background sounds of traffic and birds mingles with songs of the day drifting through the air as if they're playing from an open window of a nearby apartment. And also, during this early part of the film, we get a feel for L.B. Jeffries himself. Here we have James Stewart playing slightly against type. Whilst he is our hero, he is not the affable, charming everyman that Stewart was known for. He is abrasive and surly a lot of the time. Characterization that becomes important as those around L.B. and indeed the film itself begin to question if he is paranoid, as he begins to suspect a murder has taken place in the apartment across the courtyard. Confined to the one location, the audience, as I mentioned, begins to feel the claustrophobia as much as LB does. And with the film moving into its second act, one of the film's great strengths comes into play. The ideas around voyeurism. LB is a voyeur, prying it into the lives of others where he has no business. His intrusions into the love lives of others begins to feel slightly uncomfortable. His seeming paranoia about a murder makes us wonder, but any questions about LB's voyeurism is confounded by the realization that we as an audience are as much voyeur as he is. We are watching him as much as he is watching others, making our own conclusions about him just as much as he is doing about those that he is watching. We are complicit, and slowly as the film develops, Lisa and Stella become complicit as well. Partially the film suggests that we all enjoy watching others and speculating on the actions and motives that are driving other people's lives. Soon the film begins to crack the tension up, with LB convinced that a murder has indeed taken place. He is frustrated that law enforcement doesn't believe him, but he does manage to convince Stella and Lisa to get more involved. They begin to actively help LB, venturing out into the courtyard to investigate the goings on. Lisa even at one point breaking into an apartment and being discovered there by the owner. The tension builds and builds before a seeming deflation. The accused murderer has an alibi, and even the supposed victim appears to be alive. Has LB imagined everything? Has he allowed his obsessive behaviour to get the better of him? Has a lifetime of covering conflict caused him to see violence where there is none? And it's as the audience begins to ask itself these questions that the final twist comes, as the suspect comes to attack LB, and it's confirmed that a killing has indeed occurred and that LB was right all along. We then close on LB resting still at home, having now broken a second leg, whilst Lisa, now dressed down in trousers, breathes nearby. It's the standard ending you would expect from a thriller, but one that I think pulls its punch. For me, the interesting ending that was there but not taken is one where LB's suspicion is proven wrong, an ending where no murder has occurred. This would change the film. It would move it from being a straight thriller to becoming almost a pure character study, a film about a man lost in obsession and only realizing the path he has gone down when faced with the consequences of falsely accusing a man and pushing his friends into committing crimes. It would be a controversial ending, I'm sure, but for me it's an ending that would fit the film that has played out before it. Throughout, LB is portrayed as someone who might be prone to such behaviour. The film inviting us on a number of questions to question if he is right. We see him become less and less interested in anything but constantly monitoring those outside his window. We see the obsession grow, but the nuance of it all is diminished by the revelation that LB was right all along. Because of this, the film in its final scenes moves from presenting LB as a man struggling with mental health alongside his newfound place in the world to him as essentially the standard hero, the inspired figure that sees things that everybody else fails to notice. It makes him less interesting. Instead of a more complicated figure, he's now just the guy who caught a killer and won over the girl whilst doing so, like in so many other thrillers. Imagine an ending where a frustrated man who LB has accused of murder comes over to LB's apartment to confront him, and fearing for his life, LB preemptively blinds the man and, desperate to escape, falls from his balcony. He wakes up with a second broken leg and finds himself now in a jail cell. He is to be held for a number of weeks for harassment, and now, rather than a panoramic view, this restless adventurer has but a small barred window to peer through and has driven a wedge between himself and Lisa. We would be left to reflect on the harm that voyeurism can do to not only those being watched, but also to those losing themselves in the lives of others. Rear Window is seen as a classic of the thriller genre, but change the ending and I think it would be seen as something more. Arguably, Hitchcock would go on to make use of a darker, more surprising ending a couple of years later in Vertigo. This time the director choosing to go for a more somber take, the one that isn't the audience pleasing conclusion that you'd expect, and it does make the film better for it. So it feels like a missed opportunity in Rear Window. Anyway, let me know your thoughts below in the comments, and I'll see you again soon.